Welcome, everyone, to another Toronto Maple Leafs post-game reaction show here live on the Toronto Sports Rush Network, brought to you by Bet Rivers. The Leafs have just left the ice. They've lost down in Florida to the Florida Panthers 3-1. My name is Kyle Andrew. I'm joined once again by lead NHL analyst, Mr. EJ Hradek. What did you see out there tonight, EJ?
Well, I thought the Florida Panthers just had more urgency in their game. I mean, it's been a struggle of late for them. I think they're somewhere like 0-4-1, 0-5-1 in their last bunch of games. They didn't play a lot of their players in the game against Detroit on Sunday, and they got a lot of them back for this game, but they didn't get all of them back. I mean, no Kachuk, no Bennett, and no Ekblad, who's suspended. It looks like Kachuk, we don't know what exactly is going to be the situation. They hope to have him back for the playoffs. Bennett, apparently, they want to rest him, get him right for the playoffs. Looks like he'll be fine when the playoffs start. And, of course, Ekblad will miss the first two games. So, I don't know. I just thought the Florida Panthers, right from the get-go of the game tonight, I think Reinhart hit the post in the first shift, maybe 12, 13 seconds into the game. I thought the Panthers were by far the better team in the first period. They were on the details. They got the first goal on a clean face-off win by Lundell. I mean, like, John Tavares having a great year, but, I mean, you can't lose that draw that cleanly in the zone. It comes back, and Forsling rips one off the post. You know, on the broadcast, they were talking a little bit about maybe, he could have that shot. But, I mean, that's a clean face-off loss. You have to find the puck, and it looked like Nylander just kind of flashed his stick out there, didn't really make a full commitment to try to block it. So, I mean, that's a detail. Second period, I thought the Leafs played better, came out fast. Tavares made a nice play, scored. They got a little bit of a break on that play off the wall where it came to him, and he made a nice shot. It kind of ramped up off Nate Schmidt's stick. So we're in a 1-1 game, and I thought Florida, again, they just had more urgency in the game, more opportunities in the game, but we're tied going to the third. And then once again, the Panthers just got off the mark better in the third period, and just kind of a bad luck play in front, hits the stick. I thought Morgan Riley kind of looked like he was bailing on that play behind the net a little bit. Yeah. Hit Lundell's stick, came in front. Losterainen beat Carlo to the spot, and then just a chip. There's bad luck, it hits the wall and just kind of rolls in, and that was basically the game. An empty netter at the game. It was pretty tight. I mean, it's looked like a lot of these games have looked with they've played 4 games this year. Florida has won 3 of them, Kyle. And they all have looked similar in that they've been pretty close checking, tight games. But, for me, from a Leafs standpoint, when you're taking on a Panthers team that's struggling a bit, that has been missing some players, that's still missing some really important pieces, Kachuk and Bennett and Ekblad, you could have really done yourself a favor tonight by going in there and putting another little pin in the defending Stanley Cup champions. And instead, you walk out of there with a loss. Everything is tighter, and now you're going ready to go to Tampa Bay tomorrow night against a Lightning team that has been playing well. And if the Lightning win tomorrow in regulation, teams will be tied in points, and I think the Lightning will be in first place via the tiebreaker. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you could have done yourself a little bit of a favor with a win. Didn't happen, so you got to put it behind you and get ready for tomorrow night.
Yeah, and not in absolute mathematic terms, but had the Leafs pulled out of Florida with 2 points tonight, none for the Panthers almost would have certainly been in an impossible situation to win the division. They would have been too far back with not enough left to play. But as you eloquently pointed out, this was really about the first period and the third period in which the Florida Panthers played their game, that suffocating forecheck, the suffocating defense. And I mean, all night. Yeah, there's some talk online. He should have stopped that first goal. But as you say, Tavares had a brutal night on the draw tonight. It wasn't just then. It was, I think he ended up 3 for 3 of 10, which is very unlike him.
Yeah.
And Wall, he was being peppered like a $4 steak from the get-go tonight. And it's just, it's the fact of the matter is that they once again got outshot. But, you can play that game with some other teams. But when you have a team that gives up so few quality chances because of the suffocating way they play, playoff preview, playoff schmeview, whatever. It's the Leafs have been hot lately. The Panthers haven't been, but the talk last week was, oh, well, they beat them shorthanded. Well, tonight they got 2 of their key guys back and they couldn't beat them. And there's still more guys that will be back should they face them in the playoffs.
Yeah, like I said, it's just more disappointing for, again, from a Leafs standpoint. You'd like to go down there and send another message and, you're playing well, keep everything rolling. Because, like, I don't want to overstate it. The Leafs have been playing well. They've
Yeah.
had a great season. They're in a great position. You're not going to win every night. You're playing a team, like I said, that I think the Panthers returned home after a tough trip. They had some tough losses. They were dealing with some injuries. I think they wanted to have that urgency in their game, and they brought that tonight. They played Florida Panthers hockey for the most part. And I thought, the Leafs didn't have a million chances, but they had some good looks. Matthews had a great chance about 5 minutes left in the game off a play by Marner. I think Nyes had another opportunity. And Bobrovsky didn't make a ton of saves, but he made some good ones, and that's his job. And the job of all goalies, make those timely stops, and he made them. And the Leafs couldn't get anything going to get anything else past them to get the game tied up again. So, at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a missed opportunity in terms of winning the division. Go to Tampa tomorrow night and see what you got against the Lightning.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to split the games and pick one that's more important than the other, tomorrow night's game is more important in the standings because Tampa's closer to them. But that's going to be a tough out tomorrow night as well. Back to backs playing two of the best teams in the NHL isn't easy. What did you think about the order in which they chose? Like, Stellars will be in net tomorrow night on the back to back. I heard Berube talking before the game about how they're just making sure both guys have seen both of these teams heading into the playoffs late in the season. I like that from a decision making point of view. Wall was sharp tonight.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Craig can, he can spin it any way he wants. It was his decision to make, and maybe he's being honest with it, maybe he isn't. Hard to know. At the end of the day, I think that in his mind, he and his staff have an idea of what they're going to do going on into the playoffs with these two guys, and I don't think they're tipping their hand too much here, but I think they have an idea, and we'll see how the guys play down the stretch. But Joseph Wall played well tonight for the most part, and he's played very well this season. And certainly Anthony Stolarz, early in the year, Kyle, I mean, he was just lights out good and got hurt, came back. He's been solid. I do think, if all things being equal, I would think he'd be the guy in game one, but that's just a guess on my part. I think they could literally go either way there. So we'll see how Stolarz plays tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But, I think they want to have more energy in their game. And, we are late in the season, and there's a lot of games, and there's travel, and some nights you just don't have your legs. I didn't really think, the Leafs played their, anywhere near their A game tonight. But the good news was they really checked well. They played tight. Yeah, the Panthers got chances. They had a lot of shots, but they didn't get a ton of quality looks. And, the Panthers are going to get those chances because the way they forecheck it when they're at their game. So back to the drawing board for the Leafs. Play better tomorrow night and see where they're at.
The Leafs power play tonight was 0 for 2. They managed only one shot on goal, but I mean, against the Florida Panthers team with that suffocating play, is that much ado of nothing? Is it more, let's see how the special teams is moving forward through the rest of this season, or is there trouble on the power play right now?
Well, I mean, I think your point, I mean, it's only 2 power play opportunities, right? So it wasn't a good night for them on the power play. In the 4-game series against the Florida Panthers, I think the Panthers power play has been more effectual in the games, particularly the first couple, right? That's how they won the first 2 games they played this year, was the Panthers scored power play goals and the Leafs didn't. So they're going to have to figure that out if they were to meet in a 7-game series moving forward. But, again, I just think tonight, watching the game, I thought the Florida Panthers played with more urgency from beginning to end. And on a couple of key occasions in the game, off that face-off for the first goal, the start of the third period, they were a little bit more on top of things and got some breaks because of that.
In the dressing room for the Maple Leafs right now, can you comment based on your experience around the league? How important is home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs to them as a group of guys right now?
Well, it's hard to say because, the Leafs, the reality is this. When they've been on the road or at home in these playoffs over the last several years, for the most part, they haven't gotten it done, right? I mean, that's just the bottom line as to what's happened. They've had situations in the last several years where they've been home in big moments and lost. They've had moments when they've been on the road. I think in the playoff series against Tampa, they won the clinching game in Tampa. So, they just have to play well. And, they have to, the advantage of being at home will be for Craig Berube on that bench. if he wants matchups, if he wants certain D pairs in certain situations. I mean, that's where the big advantage will come. And, I think he will be looking for some of that stuff, maybe more so than Sheldon Keefe did in his tenure. So it's a new coach. It's kind of a new team this year. I've said it all year long. I like their team more as a real contender this year than in other years.
Mhm.
But the details are going to be the key. And whether they're home or on the road, I mean, they are going to have to find a way to play well and to find a way to continue to do those, to continue to play well defensively. But when they get offensive chances, they're going to have to find a way to finish them. Like tonight, Matthews had that really good look. Give Bobrovsky
Yeah.
credit. I mean, this guy's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a great goalie. But Austin Matthews, there, you want him to finish that one if you can. He didn't get it done tonight.
No, he didn't. And back to what you just said there too. Like, I'm curious from your point of view and all the people you talk to around the league and stuff. What is the consensus on this team? Because pillar to post, they have been consistent. They haven't gone on real long losing streaks. They've rebounded from foreplay really well. Berube's done a great job with that. But they do have the playoff demons. They do have the playoff history, the recent history, the not so recent history. It's been a long time since they won a division. Is anyone afraid of this hockey team going into the playoffs?
You know, I don't think people are, to be really honest with you. I mean, listen, they're a good team, and but they haven't won in these spots where you would be.
That's right.
Like the Tampa Bay Lightning still have that aura about them because they've won 2 Stanley Cups, went to 3 final in the last 5 years, right? And they still have core pieces from those teams. They have the goalie, Vasilevsky, who had all that Game 7 success. They have Hedman, another future Hall of Famer, Kucherov, Point. They've added pieces to that group. They've added a little bit more on the back end of that group now. So that fear you might have at Tampa because, hey, Vasilevsky, 1 game, he can beat you. He's done it before. The Florida Panthers, it's the same thing. Bobrovsky in a big spot, he's done it. The Florida Panthers have been 2 straight finals. They won the cup last year. They've overcome adversity in big moments. So there's fear against those teams. Listen, the Toronto Maple Leafs have to make other teams fear them at some point in time. I think they've had a lot of heartbreak in these last several years. And at some point in time, Kyle, and I've watched it throughout my career in hockey, going all the way back as a fan, watching the Islander teams that had heartbreaking losses in 76, 77, 78. Nothing more heartbreaking than losing to the New York Rangers, a big underdog in 79. And the Islanders, by 1980, there was a few tweaks, and all of a sudden the Islanders had had enough of losing. And, it was a different era of hockey, but they answered the challenge in every way and then went on to win 19 consecutive playoff series. And it's a different era, so I don't see that happening now. But, the Leafs are going to have to – they're going to have to answer the challenge physically in these games. And, I can remember a couple of years ago, Kyle, when they played Florida in the second round, and Austin Matthews had a chance to deliver a hard blow on Sam Bennett, and he passed. And it's not that it was necessarily bad that, it's not Matthews' game, but when you think about a big man like Austin Matthews delivering a big blow to Sam Bennett, who is a guy you have to go through if you want to beat the Florida Panthers. There are guys that you have to go through. You're not going around. I took note of that. And last year in the playoffs, the Rangers and Panthers, Bennett went after Chris Kreider, a bigger, stronger guy, just so I'm not singling out Matthews here, and Kreider didn't respond, to my liking, in that moment physically. So, these are things that happen to individuals when they've lost in big moments over several years. Are you willing to do what is necessary in the moment to win? And so that will be the question that I have for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'll be looking for these moments. And I think Craig Berube understands that kind of hockey and those kind of moments. So we'll see. Are the Toronto Maple Leafs tired enough of coming out on the short end? So when it's all said and done, you say you've done everything you could possibly do to win. I don't think that's been the case in the past couple of years. We'll see how it plays out this year.
Very well said, EJ. And one thing I did notice last week when Florida was exceptionally shorthanded against the Leafs, they lost the game, but again, it was close. They were very calm about it. There was a calmness about them. They've been to the dance, they've done it. Now, tonight, the Leafs lose a tight one in Florida, a Florida team that only got a few of those guys back, not all of them. There's more
Yeah.
coming. And tomorrow night, they're going to go into Tampa Bay and play a team that may be even calmer under this late stress. Tampa knows a win tonight would put them in the driver's seat of controlling their destiny for the rest of this season. And because the Leafs haven't had that playoff success that the fan base is so hungry for now, we're waiting for the moment you just described, and it's not always a goal. Sometimes it is a hit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an incredible forecheck, a relentless penalty kill, and the Leafs are just looking for that capital letter punctuated moment in the playoffs. And if I'm them, you better get it early in the series and establish some sort of dominance, because I believe what you're saying right now. I don't think other teams are afraid of this hockey team, no matter how good they've been, top to bottom, four lines in the net all season long. They have to prove it when it matters.
Yeah, and another thing I'll say about both Florida and Tampa having won the cup, I talked to Butch Goring years ago, who was on that Islander team that won the 4 consecutive cups and 19 playoff series. And and this is, even a couple years ago, I said, Butch, which was the hardest one to win? And without hesitation, Kyle, he said the first one. And I said, why? Because I'm just curious, like, why would that be? And he said, because we didn't really know how to do it. But once we did, we never thought we would lose ever again. And they almost didn't for a long time. So teams that you talked about it, you picked up on it, the calmness of Florida, the calmness in Tampa. They've been in all those spots, a lot of those guys. They've raised that cup. They've been in those moments. They understand what it takes. It's something you have to prove along the way. And I do think it is something, as Butch Goring pointed out, when you learn how to do it, it stays with you. So the Leafs are still learning how to do it, and maybe this is the year they figure it out.
This is the best version of the Toronto Maple Leafs team I've seen in quite a while. As
Yeah.
far as consistency and as far as a full lineup across the board, they're not a two-line hockey team anymore. They're not a single goalie, or even just a single B goalie in
Yeah.
net anymore. But again, they have to prove it. So let's stop the doom train. It's not a
Yeah.
doom train. We're not being doomful. We're commenting on
Hey, it's a
recent
rough
history.
road.
It's
Kyle,
a
it's a
rough
rough
road. It's not
road.
easy. Yeah.
That's why we've talked about all year long
Yeah.
this path of winning the division, because you would prefer not to play both of these teams en route to maybe winning a Stanley Cup. That's how it goes. I mean,
Yeah.
when you can avoid playing great teams or teams that could be dangerous, that's good for you. So in the end, who knows how it's going to play out, because Ottawa has been playing better. We don't know exactly how these teams are all going to finish. You might still be in a position, if you win the division, where you end up playing Florida and then having to play Tampa. Who knows? But at the end of the day, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it has been a better season, to your point. I think Craig Berube has instilled a kind of game that can win in the playoffs, and it'll be up to the players now. Will they do what it takes when it matters? We're going to find out.
As it's been the case for years now, the Eastern Conference goes through the state of Florida. That's how it is.
Yeah.
This is the fate, and you got to figure out how to beat one of these teams. So let's look a little bit further ahead. We've covered the potential matchup, not the potential, but the matchup coming tomorrow night in Tampa. The two games after that are no gimmies either. They're Saturday night against the Habs, and then they are Sunday, right? Another back to back, which isn't
Yeah.
easy, playing the Hurricanes. These are two teams also jockeying for position right now,
Yep.
hungry, and they'll be firing on all cylinders. So they're not tune-up games for the Leafs, because they're fighting for position too. These are intense hockey games against two other hungry teams playing totally different styles from what they saw tonight.
Yeah, I think the Leafs' schedule is tricky here down the
Yeah.
stretch based on how things are looking, because you knew this was going to be a tough back-to-back no matter what. They don't get it done tonight, so now they've got to go to Tampa and see if they can get it turned around there. To your point, the Montreal Canadiens on Saturday night. I mean, that's Montreal and Toronto. I mean, that's always a fun game on a Saturday night. But, the Canadiens are playing some really good hockey right now, and so that'll be a handful. And then you've got the Carolina Hurricanes on short rest in Carolina, and they're always kind of a tough matchup for the Leafs. And they're a tough matchup for most teams, the way they play. And then they finish out the season in Buffalo. And, I joke about it. This is the Sabres time of year, right? They're out of it. and then they go on these little hot runs at the end of the season. They're a dangerous team right now just because they can score. They're playing loose, and they're just playing out the string. So I think that will be a challenging game. And then they finish the season against the Red Wings in a game that may or may not mean something for one or both teams. So I think it's a challenging stretch for them. And, Florida and Tampa will play each other once down the stretch, and they both have a bunch of home games. So it's going to be an interesting last, 7, 8, 9 days of the season.
Yeah, and another note for people watching right now too. The next back-to-back, that's a Saturday night game versus the Canadiens. Then they have to fly to Carolina
Yeah.
for a late afternoon Sunday game. It's a 5 o'clock start on Sunday, so there's
Yeah.
even 2 hours less typical turnaround time there. So they'll be in tough on that.
Yep.
It's not an easy way for them to end the season, but it shouldn't be, because I don't think you want to roll into the playoffs given their history and circumstance coasting. You need to be tested. You need to test your special teams right now, and you need to make sure your goaltenders are sharp. So maybe it's for the best. 2 back-to-backs in the final, like as you say, 7 to 9 days of the season. Not easy, but it's you play the cards you're dealt, and that's just how things go here.
Kyle, for me, it would be a great situation for them if their fate was determined after that game against Buffalo. Because it'd be great if it would be determined before then. I have a feeling it won't be, because I think, that last game against the Red Wings, you're going to turn around and start the playoffs likely on Saturday night in Toronto, right? I mean, that's likely the schedule. It'd be nice for the Leafs to be able to rest a bunch of players on Thursday and have that little extra rest going into the postseason. So we will see how it plays out. It would be nice if that would be the case for them, but what is nice and what is reality is often different things.
2 very different things.
Yeah.
And this is the Eastern Conference is fascinating right now because the top teams, all the playoff teams are playing right now, and we don't know where things are going to land. It's exciting.
Right.
It's the parity that we're seeing in the modern game of hockey right now. The NHL's had a tremendous season of displaying their product between 4 nations, Ovi scoring, and we're on the heels of great playoff hockey and races to finish up the season. So we'll be live many post-game shows. Well, hopefully many post-game shows, according to Leafs fans, for the playoffs. So we got to cover it all. But up until then, we're on the edge of our seat waiting to see what happened, EJ.
Yeah, hey, I think, like I said, I like this team. And you know what? I'm sure in that room, the guys who have been there, those core guys that have been there for a while, I think they're tired of being on the wrong end of it. So we're going to find out. But for all 16 teams that make the playoffs, the path is difficult. There's a lot of challenges, injuries, matchups. I always say those are the most important things. So we'll see where these guys are at coming up, a week from Saturday.
All right, EJ, in closing here, I want to make sure that our viewers check out the interview you did with the legendary Bruce Boudreau that got put up on the channel today. It was a great conversation, talking all things hockey, covered some OV, which you just can't avoid these days. What a story that has been. And we are down into the home stretch, so check that out. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. We'll respond tomorrow or maybe later tonight if one of us can't sleep. Once again, you watched a live post-game reaction show. Maple Leafs lose 3-1 in Florida tonight. My name is Kyle Andrew. I was joined once again by NHL analyst Mr. EJ Hradek. Thanks for watching.